Hello and welcome to ArtShow. I'm Craig Stover, and today I have with me Thom Duffy. Tom, how are you today?
I'm well, Craig, and yourself?
Doing very well. I am excited to talk to you today about some work of yours. So I went online and selected a number of pieces, but I wanted to start with this one in particular. So I know that aside from an artist, that you also have some curatorial, and that you've recently done an exhibit down at the Waterworks. And I was wondering, does this painting have any connection to that, or is it separate?
No, actually, that piece is titled Freed,
Okay.
question mark. And it was a piece I did for the show in 2022, summer of 2023.
Okay.
And that show was titled Submerged, A
Hmm.
Changing Global Climate. So for folks who are familiar with this figure, she rests on top of the entrance to the Fairmount Waterworks.
Mm-hmm.
And she was fabricated in the 1980s and placed there. And she's modeled after William,
Rush?
I'm blanking on his name.
Is it Rush? Is that his
Yes,
last
thank you. William Rush.
name?
There's a small maquette of the freed sculpture in the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's carved out of wood. So she is a very Roman type of figure, and she has her hand over the water wheel. And as an energy worker, I like to think that she's doing energy work, keeping that water wheel spinning.
Uh-huh.
The pipe behind her has water flowing out into a vase that rests behind her. That represents the reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
So the Fairmount Waterworks, the water wheels engine powered the water up to the reservoir, which is the site of the Philadelphia Museum of Art now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nation's first reservoir. And then the gravitational pull would bring the water down to Center City Square, which is where City Hall is now, and
Well,
then sent out in wood pipes to residents and fire hydrants. And it was the first, our nation's first waterworks system.
Well, the reason I chose this picture, looking at all of your works, sometimes you dive into, like, you have sort of secondary storyline, which sort of
Mhm.
intrigued me. So here you've modified the picture, putting it into a new background, a new setting, and the idea of the sort of water level rising. That isn't found in all your works, and I found it particularly delightful in this one. Aside from the fact that I also really enjoyed the paint handling. I think you really it's very activated field. I thought that was really
Yeah.
fantastic. But I like that sort of.
Yeah, there's definitely a narrative and a story to this one.
Mhm.
So the Schuylkill River has flooded, which was the theme of the submerged story, where the exhibition was held, which is what they call the medium room, but now they call it, which has a lot of student activities and other meetings held in there. It's a multimedia room. Um, when I hang the shows there, there's the metal hardware from and the wires to hang the artwork. And during this show of Submerged, when I gave tours, I talked to them about how this room was completely submerged in water
Nice.
during the flood of Ida.
Uh,
So here she is again. And to think about this actually happening, she's on top of the entrance of the
yeah.
Fairmount Waterworks. So now she's up to her chin in water. Fortunately, the storm clouds have passed, and you can see
Hmm.
the white puffy clouds and the blue skies in the background, indicating that the storm has passed. She's out of imminent danger. She
Hmm.
still has a look of frustration on her face because there's work that needs to be done by us to be kinder and gentler to the planet and
And
to
how
help
how big
reduce.
is this picture? What's the size on this?
It's on a quarter sheet of arches, so it's
Okay.
22 by 30.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is this a acrylic on paper?
So I really have been enjoying going on to watercolor paper with a graphite drawing,
Okay.
and then I put ground color on it with watercolor,
Okay.
and then I glaze over it with acrylic. And I really just like the textures I'm getting from it and the
Hmm.
different depth I get from it. Wow, yeah.
So speaking of, works on paper. This is also on paper, correct?
Yeah, that is oil on canvas.
This one on canvas. Okay, so I was off there with some of the whites. They were very very whites. I guess that's painted white.
Yeah. So this one I did when I had a studio down in up in Octo Studio at 2202 Alter Street, which I
Mm-hmm.
believe is still functioning as a studio there by River and her
Mm,
husband. Um, so this was ode to doing a still life, but also ode to pet portraits with the
mm-hmm.
dog being taped on the mirror in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
and
like
this
how
painting, this
it also has a storyline in it, but it's a lot more intimate kind of a thing. Like I can imagine that you know this dog, you know, and
actually I didn't. That was a
really
photograph given to me by a client that I did a pet portrait for.
okay.
They won at a raffle, so I didn't even know the client that well, but I just kind of liked, I had it laying around. It was printed out from Staples, the photograph. So I just taped the paper to the mirror and I wanted to do kind of an interior still life study.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love that the collector that bought this, actually this time last year, it has a career history in veterinary medicine.
Mm. I enjoyed the mirroring and the actually the double mirroring on this, and so it's sort of you're
Yeah, the round
suggesting
one
that
on the bottom, I
the
found
space
that
was
on the
out.
sidewalk.
Really?
I think it's from a postal truck, an old post.
Okay.
So
It's well put together. The geometry in it is it's very tight, and
thank you.
I've always appreciated that.
Uh,
Speaking of pictures that are sort of iconic, when I'm looking through different pieces of your work, this one really sort of stood out. And aside from the fact that it's a self portrait, but I'm
yeah,
guessing that there's got to be a little story behind this.
there's a little bit of a story, and you're right, it is kind of iconic. I've used it on different profiles as my main profile picture, and I think even like my LinkedIn, which I'm not very big on LinkedIn. Um, So I do a lot of self-portraits and I really enjoy doing them. One of my favorite self-portraits is by an artist, and we both share the same birthday, October 25th, and that's Pablo Picasso. So the Philadelphia Museum of Art has a really beautiful self-portrait he has. He's wearing a tight t-shirt and he has a wood palette and a brush in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that pose um, and I am left-handed. But I took that pose and took a selfie upstairs in the studio that has a gray wall behind it. At that time, too, I actually, a couple months prior, I received a steroid shot in my foot because I had plantar fasciitis
Uh-huh.
and it got into my bloodstream. And
Oh.
I literally,
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
I say pissed out
Sure.
30 pounds?
Well,
I did.
I mean,
So I went from 215 down to 183. I needed to
okay,
lose the weight, but
right.
now I'm about 190. But I was very svelte then. So I was just like, you know what? This is a good time to do a full figure selfie.
Well, for me, what I was interested in was actually this is kind of nerdy, but it's the colors that are on your palette. They don't seem to be the same colors that you've used in the picture.
Right.
I mean, there's these bright reds and bright yellows, but I really enjoy that because it it rather than blending in with the picture, it stands out. It's like
Hmm.
sort of jump. And then looking at some of your other works, some of your pure abstract works, you do use those colors,
Right.
right?
Well, it
Those
is a paper palette, and the palette I use those forever
right.
until I feel like, all right, I should finally get rid of. And I actually saved some of them. There are a bunch of them downstairs.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I could ever frame them all together as archival, but how archival that would be. But
Well, I liked it was offset because that the colors on that palette are so saturated, and yet you use so many muted colors in the
yeah,
portrait. So
yeah,
that
thank you.
works for me.
Yeah,
I
thank you for
really
noticing that.
enjoyed that one. That was a
Yeah.
good picture. Um, this particular painting, yeah, okay. Um, I also liked it because of the tightness of this. Like you spent a lot of time really looking on this particular
Hmm.
piece.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm guessing that there is the symbolism in this particular painting is very personal.
Yep.
It's just a guess.
Yeah.
Um, so Are the flowers also, are you using those as a symbol, or are they just flowers?
So let's start with your first comment regarding the symbolism behind this. And I just like to be open and clear about that I am far more spiritual than I am religious. I was raised in a Catholic family out on the main line, 12 years of Catholic education in grade school and high school. The icons are they are still very personal to me, and I use them as objects to meditate on as an energy worker. I can meditate on them for other people's needs for their health, or a lot of times I'll set up an altar for if I know a family member or loved one that is going through hospice. I do that sort of thing. So this was taken from a window that I biked past down here on Rittner Street, about a block or so away from St. Monica's Church here
Hmm.
in Girard Estate, South Philadelphia. So I used that because I just loved her. I thought she was beautiful.
Hmm.
I loved the way the necklace, the rosary was wrapped around her, the stained glass globe, and the stained glass. It was kind of like just a circle window behind
Hmm.
her. The flowers, there was something on her right side where you see those flowers,
Hmm.
but it wasn't anything that was adding to the picture, and it kind of was causing this imbalance.
Hmm.
So I actually have that vase here, that white vase with the
Okay.
gold rim, and those are peach. I think they're peony flowers, pink peony flowers, and some iris or whatever purple and yellow flowers in that arrangement, and they're cheap silk flowers. So I actually set that up and put it at like the height of
Hmm.
that was equal to her and all that. So I pretty much superimposed that in separately from working from a photograph. So
Okay. Do you always do you have source materials usually, or is it, or are you more of a from life person?
so I
Okay.
do I do enjoy having somebody sit for me and work from life. But it's just, with my schedule and other people's schedule, it's hard to make that
It is
happen.
difficult to, yeah.
Yeah, so and
Sorry.
with the pet portraits that I've done, I've really kind of gotten a formula down, or whatever you want to call it, of working from a photograph. And I feel like my paintings are successful in that way, where they may not be done from life, but they are done from photographs. And the photograph behind me of my friend Ed Rashevsky, I actually had several photographs that I worked
Okay.
from that. Oh
Well, I
yeah,
wanted to make sure to get to this very sweet little painting.
thank you.
I thought it was wonderfully executed, and it's just enough to allow the viewer to use their own imagination to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Um, was this a one-off, or is this part of, like, did you do a series of these, or?
So it is a still life where I was doing a lot of still life at that time. I remember doing this in my home at 2137 Clymer Street and not in this studio, because that orange wall was in the dining room.
Mm,
I don't know what made me do it at home and not in the studio. I guess I just wanted to paint, or maybe I didn't have the studio until then.
mhm.
This piece is still available. It's framed and it's up in my massage room. So
Okay.
yeah, I
It's a
have it.
really nice paint. The way that you're handling the paint, it's a little Manet-ish, it's sort of
Yeah,
letting
I
letting the
really
paint be
loved
paint.
I don't work in oils anymore because of my massage practice. I really don't want those smells and odors of the cleaners and the oils in
Hmm.
my home and in the treatment room.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm working solely on water-based. But I do miss the directness of the oil. And I
Hmm.
think that's why I like putting the final layer over watercolors and pencils with the acrylic, even
Hmm.
though acrylic does have some transparency to it. There's a lot of opaqueness to it. So,
Hmm. Would
uh,
you ever uh, see yourself returning to oils if you had a different studio setup?
um, I don't know. I have to think about that. I like the quick and easy cleanup.
Yeah, it is
And
a big plus, isn't it? And the dry time is also really
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. And then I'll have to do a little bit more research now. I mean, I'm feeling a little bit more environmentally conscious, so I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it's like because I wasn't as environmentally conscious when I was using oils back then, so I don't know what is a good system and what good brands of products are to
They
use.
have a whole bunch of new stuff coming out. So yeah,
Yeah,
Blick
yeah.
has this new Origin stuff. It's really great.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to end on this particular piece.
Which is probably my most recent one.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
As soon as I saw this, I started thinking of Paul Cadmus, right? But
Oh, okay, yeah.
without the pen lines in it, it has like
Hmm.
the look of some of his early sketches.
Yeah.
Um, I just really like this. So, who is
You
this?
could say Reginald Marsh too if you want.
Yes, I could. Yeah, that's right. Who is this?
That is a friend of mine from many, many years ago.
Okay,
I haven't seen or heard from him since. Uh,
from life or from photo?
this was from Life,
Okay.
or pardon me, from Photo.
Oh,
And
all right.
then the beach and the ocean and the sky were at it.
So it's
So
invented. All right. I
yeah,
like that the idea that you're using that and mushing it together because it doesn't look invented. It looks like he's actually at a day at the beach. So
yeah.
it works out really well. I
And
really
when
like
I
what
did this years ago. I have this Stonehenge book that I got in 2004. And this year I just started opening up again and
mm,
revisiting some of the color works.
mm-hmm,
They're all done with brown ink. So the
mm-hmm,
lines that you do see there
right.
are in brown ink. And then I've gone over them again with watercolor markers to add the color, pardon me. And then some brush work is worked in too to blend them a little bit more
Quite
watery too.
nice. It's about yay big.
Yeah, it's 11 by 14.
Yeah, it's a really nice
Um,
person
and
size.
then with the red hat, I painted it red and I was like, oh shoot. Like there was no Philly logo on it at first. I was like, I just can't have that hat be
Uh-huh.
red. So I
Right.
looked over my coat rack and I just did the Philly P on top of it, which was
We don't need to
perfect.
go into that, but I know exactly what you mean. So I wanted to start. I want to ask you about your history. Like, how long have you been making art now?
Hmm. I've been an artist all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Kutztown University and it was all pre-digital.
Mm-hmm.
And when I graduated in 1988, I had a beautiful portfolio with watercolored illustrations,
Mm-hmm.
an annual corporate identity logo, and the annual report, all done by hand and
Mm-hmm.
marker and cut with razor blades. And 3 months after I graduated, every ad in the paper you needed Work Express and computer generated. And I was just,
Mm-hmm.
man. So,
Right.
right.
Do
So
you
I
do
still
you
re
do
what's
you
that?
incorporate any computer work within your work? Have you ever done that?
So since then, and all the when I worked at like all the different galleries throughout the years, I ended up designing the ads and figuring out how to do that. So I ended
Okay.
up figuring out how to do it
Yeah.
technically.
I was just kind of
As
curious
far as
if you ever Photoshop stuff together, being that you use both photographs and real life, doing the combining. Has that ever
onto one
entered your
image,
process?
I don't think I have
Okay. You
done
don't
that.
need to do it, right? Because you can
Right.
just do it in your head.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'll definitely piece works together from different images. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
So was there anybody who was sort of instrumental in your life that really sort of lit your fire about art? Like,
so when I went to Archbishop Carroll, I kind of fumbled through that. I went to Penn State Lima campus and fumbled through that. I landed at Delaware County Community College
hmm,
and I started to take some liberal arts and fine art classes. And I remember Alf Svensson, who taught painting there and color theory, but mostly painting he taught. And drawing, and he was just a really good teacher. and he really stuck out to me as far as teacher. Then I went off to Kutztown University, and some of the teachers were good with graphic design, but they just didn't have the impact of him talking about really looking at a still life and an object and really looking at the reflective light and the color and how it's all about the environment and not just the actual piece. So he was one. As far as later, when I worked at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, a good friend of mine, James Lyons, and we would get together and invite a friend to sit for us, and we would
Hmm.
do these figure studies. We also took classes with Al Gurry when we were both working at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts together there. I have a
You
good
know,
friend.
I do find that artists may have 50 different teachers, but there's only like maybe two that really
Yeah.
people remember. Oh, I remember that guy, but
Yeah. And then
nobody
I
else.
enjoy talking to Bill Scott about different shows that we see or our
Hmm.
work, or I'll have a studio visit there and here and stuff like
It's nice
that.
that you still have contemporaries that still, push you
Yeah.
forward sometimes.
Yeah.
So
But
I,
the Reginald Marshes and
mm,
the Cadmus, they are definitely and that time mid-modern 20th century artists is something that
mhm.
speaks to me, the color, the Fauvus and all that.
I'm a huge fan of Reginald Marsh.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious a little bit. I want to dive a little more into your working process. Do you keep a sketchbook?
Do I keep a sketchbook? Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth. This is
Okay,
the
you
sketchbook
do
that I
keep a
use.
sketchbook. All right.
Um,
Do you
it's
use
it
those in the artwork then? Do they get transferred, or is that its own thing?
so it does get transferred from like there's sketches from Freed that I did in that book that led to the first piece that you showed in that. I have a lot of different sketchbooks, and then I'll go back to old sketchbooks and go back into things and say,
Mm.
hey, I wasn't doing this at this time. What if I piece those together? And that's when, you picked that one of Musa, the figure piece, which reflects to that. So I
Have you
do
ever
sketch and draw a lot.
okay. Have you ever
And I
shown a
always,
sketchbook?
what's that?
Have you ever shown a sketchbook in a show?
No, I haven't, because they're just a lot of times I'll start one and jump to another one, and
Okay.
yeah, I wish this one I want to stick to like keeping that one going and going and going.
Okay.
I've thought about doing that. And especially drawing, not just in a sketchbook, but I always go back to self-portraits too. Not so much in a sketchbook size, but mostly 18 and a half by 11. I struggle with drawing like sketchbooks. I can draw small and did it, but once I want to do like a portrait or grab a likeness of
Mm.
something, it has to be a little
It's
bit
totally
bigger.
different muscles that you're using, so
Yeah,
I get it. It can be
yeah.
tough. Well, that actually leads me perfectly to my next question. So you talk about self-portraits. Do you consider your works autobiographical, or is that just is it coincidental? Is it like
No, I think
trying
my
to
work is it's really talking about my life and my relationships and my friends. And I think growing up in the family, the Irish family. Um, so yeah, I do think my work is
so
autobiographical.
if you ever had a retrospective, you could read it like a storyline? Like
Yeah,
okay.
kind of, including pets and all that too.
Right. Yeah. Do you feel that your work has changed over the years?
I do.
How?
And with that Freed one and even Ed's portrait behind me, I do see I'm kind of leaning towards works that are narrative and telling a story either about a person or a pet or, global climate change or that type of thing. So, which is really kind of interesting. It's not just about, and even the religious and iconic imagery is talking about my relationship with my mother as well as the relationship as the icon. Like I did as a still life of Saint Teresa and the roses that I worked from taking a photograph with flowers all around it. And that statuette, my mother was my mother's, and she told me this when I came out to her, that I pray to Saint Teresa of the Roses every day for you and all this other stuff. So, yeah.
Have you ever found yourself reworking artwork?
Oh, all the time. I have a flat file that I pull things out.
Okay.
and go back in it.
Do you also like discard work that you think may have been good at one point, but no longer meets the mark?
Yeah, I have ripped and torn up artwork. Sometimes I've made collages out of it. Other
Hmm.
times I've ripped or cut or torn artwork to kind of uh, give it a new lens,
Hmm.
and sometimes that has become like a small oil abstract, which I just sold two of those recently to a friend. It was
Nice.
a larger still life, and when I cut it down, I was being very kind of random in my selection and the tearing, but kind of deliberate into what kind of power I wanted from it.
So, time for just two more questions. Goes by
Okay.
quick when we're having fun.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to know so I've seen a good number of your pieces. Are there mediums that you have yet to work with that you're kind of thinking like, hey, that would be fun to do? Sculpture or photography or poetry,
Um,
who knows what?
yeah, I have a friend, Peter Cunicelli, and he does ceramics.
Hmm.
And I love taking ceramics in when I was at Kutztown. I couldn't throw for nothing, anything. I don't know what's the
Uh-huh.
nomenclature
I
for
get you.
But slab building, I really had a lot of fun with, and rolling lace doilies and imprinting
Okay.
that on it. I had a lot of fun with that too. So I
So
could
you
see
think that's
myself,
something that you might go into if you can
yeah,
figure out a way
yeah,
to
I
do
could see myself
self-portraits
doing that.
in ceramics or something?
Yeah, ceramics. And then I have recently gotten into working with some oil pastels.
Hmm.
The French ones, I forget the brand name, but
Hmm.
I'm working on them, and either working onto older pieces, or I do have a few panels that I have prepared that I
Great.
never
I'd
used.
love to see those.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Last question.
Mhm.
Simple question. What does making art do for you?
Making art is really a comfort and a safe place for me. And I always felt that it's like an old friend that when you get together, it's just like, all right, this is good. And that's why it was really helpful in 2020. Like that, the painting of the Blessed Mother, where you're like, you took a lot of time on this. I did that in 2020, and you're
Hmm.
right, I took a lot of time on that, and that is like, I really get into so much detail, but that one, it just became meditative in a way. So yeah,
I can see that. Well, Tom, it's a thrill talking to you today. Thank you
yeah,
so
I've
much for
enjoyed
coming
this too.
by and telling me a little bit about your work. And I want to thank everybody who stopped by to watch our discussion today. We love having people watch our shows, especially if you can like and subscribe. That actually helps push our show forward. So thank you very much for watching. And again, Tom, thanks very much. I really
Oh, thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Craig. This was a really nice opportunity and a lot of fun to do. Thank
Great.
you.
Goodbye, everyone.